How's everybody doing? This is a hangout right now. It's 12. What I see here, 12:23 right now. I take off my glasses to see things. And let me get straight into it one time. You see the title already. Psalms 120. Oh, man. Yeah. Psalms 124. It says, if it hadn't been for the Lord that was on our side, when men rose up against us, they would have swallowed us up really quickly. And their wrath that was kindled against us would have overwhelmed us. And the stream of their hatred would have gone over our soul, and the proud waters would have drowned us. But blessed be the Lord, who has not given us as prey into their teeth. Our soul is escaped as a bird out of a snare. The snare is broken, and we're escaped, because our help is in the name of the Lord who made heaven and earth. We're going to talk about that topic somewhat in here. So Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice, and Justice League basically deal with a change in perspective of things, a change in perspective. And we're going to see how that fits in with everything. And we got a lot of stuff to talk about, so I'm going to try and get it. You guys can always leave your comments in the chat section. I'll be going to and fro between the chat section and what I'm saying right now. Let's get into it. So we're looking at the DCEU. And one of the things in Man of Steel that I noticed was there's always these repeated motifs. And I never really noticed it. But when you look at the World Engine, there literally is, as you can see, Zack Snyder has like almost two identical shots. This time, one with the World Engine over Krypton and one with the World Engine over Earth, particularly Metropolis. In the case of the one with Earth, the World Engine is actually actively doing something there. And you can see active destruction. And basically, in this meme, it says that the World Engine, it hovers over the council as judgment is given. And this is in the case of this over General Zod and his rebellion. And after that, Krypton is soon destroyed. Okay, now the World Engine actually takes General Zod and his compatriots and carries them out to the Phantom Zone. So the World Engine doesn't stay there. And it's interesting because when you think about it, it's a repeated motif where you see the World Engine here. Again, it's in judgment. This time it's in judgment of Metropolis because General Zod, he's the one that decided Metropolis has to be terraformed and the world has to be changed so that he can have a new Krypton. And it's also very interesting that General Zod didn't go back with the World Engine, but basically every other member of the crew went back into the Phantom Zone. So this World Engine above here went into the Phantom Zone, and the same World Engine, because it's the same World Engine, what goes back into the Phantom Zone, which is very interesting. The other thing is, of course, it's above the seat of judgment. So the seat of judgment in this case, well, actually here it's above the seat of judgment in Krypton, which is the Council of Krypton, and here it's above Metropolis, and the judgment seat is actually in the World Engine, which is General Zod. He's made the decision, okay, let's terraform the Earth, starting with Metropolis. The other very interesting thing I thought that was not mentioned is this is a Kryptonian ship. So we see basically Zack Snyder gives us a context for the ship, and it's Kryptonian, so that when we actually see it on Earth, it feels alien and Kryptonian. And it's so interesting to see it in its Kryptonian environment here with the red sun, and here you see it on the Earth environment with the yellow sun over here. So I just thought that was really cool, very interesting. But then again, we're going back to the scripture for a second, and the scripture says, though, that we are delivered from those who seek to destroy us. And the difference between, I would say, this story here and this story here is one of deliverance, where General Zod started to destroy, and he was going to annihilate the world. But then the Savior, the Messiah, who in this case is Superman, he came in and stopped that from happening. Whereas Krypton was completely destroyed, and it was independent of this World Engine here, but the World Engine just happened to be in the picture, sort of. Here, Earth was prevented from being destroyed by active work through a World Engine. And it's very interesting that the difference between this story and this story is the messianic figure. So that's how it applies to the scripture that we just talked about. And you're not completely consumed because the Lord God is our deliverer. He kind of delivered out of their hands. And it's interesting that the story of Jesus says that he dies, actually. So he actually dies to deliver us. And it's very interesting that the deliverance is not that you won't face death, but that you will rise again. So I thought all of those little things are very interesting because Metropolis had to rebuild from that incident. There was damage done, but they were still delivered from the hands of Zod, right? And I feel like that motif is very important for all of us. Let's just go and check the chat section, see what you guys are saying in the chat section very quickly. I'm going to try and manage my time as wisely as possible. So if you are in the chat section right now, you can hail me out, say, hey, hello. You can ask questions on what we're talking about, as well as you can ask any question about concerning the DCEU right now, because we're in a sort of lull phase, I would think. And good, you can hear me. You can hear me great. So if you are there, just throw in a hello or a hi. Some of you guys are at work. Be careful, you know, if you're on the job, do your work, you know. But otherwise, you know, it's good if you guys can throw in a chat, a hello or whatever, and we can have a dialogue, because I usually do these videos so we can have a discussion. Okay, I'm going back to the video. Nobody in the chat section said anything yet. I'll be passing back. Don't worry. I will get you guys involved as much as possible in this video. So we're going right back to what we were talking about. And the next thing I want to show you guys has to do with, it's quite elaborate. It has to do with perception, as I said before. Perception in the DCEU, in these three movies, the perception of Kal-El. I mean, I specifically called him Kal-El by his Kryptonian name because you'll see what I'm talking about. And it's very interesting that when you look at, say, the military in Man of Steel, and you look at Batman in Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, and then Justice League, it's very interesting how their perception of Kal-El changes as the story progresses onwards. And first of all, I just want to show you again that the messianic sort of message, which is that while Krypton died, I remember Lara, I forgot what her last name was. She's not Elle. She's Lara something. I can't remember. You guys can correct me on this, but Lara said, make a better world than ours was, Kal. And it's very interesting that Kal basically is able to sort of break from the past, because a dying Krypton was what Jor-El did not want to happen again. And it's interesting, the General Zod wanted to bring back Krypton by actually implementing what happened to Krypton on Earth, but just this time artificially. Now, Krypton was destroyed pretty much by natural means, but it exploded from the inside out. And basically, it was like a massive destruction of Krypton, right? What General Zod was going to do was destroy Krypton, Earth from the inside out, destroy Earth as we know it, and form a Krypton. And I just find all of these things very interesting, because it's interesting that by natural means, Krypton, by the fault of the people on their planet, was destroyed. And General Zod comes back with that same mentality of destroying something to build something else. Remember, these people, they had harvested their core. It had been unstable for a while. They harvested the unstable core, and that's what caused Krypton to be destroyed. Now here comes General Zod. He's trying to destroy the world, and of course destabilize its core as well, to create his paradise of Krypton. I just find that very interesting, that the same thought process that General Zod was fighting against with the Council of Krypton is the same thought process he actually uses, but in a much more cruel way. So I just found that all very interesting as I was reflecting on that. Hold on a second here. Not quite sure where this is happening. Some things in life you just have to wonder. You're like, what's going on? Okay, there you go. That's much better. So I just found that very interesting. Now, let's go across to the world and their perception of Superman. Do understand that when Superman finally shows up, he shows up because General Zod, okay, exposes that there's a Kryptonian living amongst mankind. Thankfully, Superman, at least Kal-El, knew who he was. If he didn't know who he was, he would not have been able to respond, and General Zod would have just destroyed the Earth. But thankfully, he knew who he was before General Zod came. It's just a very important point. If General Zod had come and Jonathan Kent hadn't told young Clark Kent, you need to find out who you are. You got to find out who you are. And if young Clark Kent hadn't found out who he was and gotten that information, which is pretty convenient that it happened in that story, then just imagine General Zod coming. Well, actually, General Zod would never have come because then Clark would never have triggered the beacon. But let's just assume that he triggered the beacon, but he never found out the information from his father because he didn't know how to put the command key in. There's still so many variables how Clark may not have. Well, if he had put the no, actually that wouldn't happen either. He had to put the command key in that would set the signal to General Zod. So he had to put the command key in. But I guess if he hadn't had a discussion with his father's consciousness or the computer program, the AI, about himself, which is highly unlikely as well. You know, this could have been another story, okay? But it's just interesting that Kal-El, who is, he's Kal-El because of his Kryptonian heritage and his Kryptonian genealogy and his powers and stuff. But Kal-El, anyway, was shown by Jonathan Kent certain values. And while he was exposed as a Kryptonian amongst Earthlings, okay, and his cover's kind of broken. Like, the Earthlings know who he is. He's a Kryptonian. He's Kal-El, right? But what he walks around on Earth as, very few people know. Okay, very few people are in the know about that. Okay, we have the League that knows that. We have Lois Lane and Martha Kent that know that. We have Lex Luthor that knows that. But other than that, there's just a very slim amount of people in the world that know Kal-El is Clark Kent, Clark Joseph Kent. Okay, so it means when at the point of Man of Steel, the only people who knew that Clark Kent was Kal-El was his mother, his priest, and Lewis. Right? Those were the people who knew he was Kal-El because he confessed to the priest he was Kal-El. His mother knew he was Kal-El from the news. She found out his name was Kal-El, unless he told her. And Lewis knew he was Kal-El because she was searching, and now she found out his name was Kal-El on the news. She didn't know he was Kal-El before that. She knew he was Clark. Now, the interesting thing about this is that General Zod knows him as Kal-El, and he also knew him as Clark. He knew him as Kal-El and Clark. He didn't call him Clark, his Earth name, thankfully. So the whole world doesn't know that Kal-El is Clark Kent. But at the same time, he let the world know he was Clark. Now, here's the interesting thing about the whole thing. The interesting thing is that when you look at, and let me just zoom in this. I'll go into the nitty-bitty details of this in a minute. When you look at the comparisons between what happens with Kal-El in Man of Steel and what happens with him in Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice and Justice League, it's very interesting how the reaction of the military to Kal-El and the reaction of Bruce Wayne to Kal-El, they're pretty similar. I'll show you what I mean. So if you look here, you would see that at first they deliver Kal-El to General Zod as General Zod asked. General Zod was the one that exposed that he was alien among them. They found Kal-El, and they were able to deliver Kal-El to General Zod. Farah comes down. She sees him, and then she introduces herself on behalf of General Zod to him, and then she goes past him, and she's selecting Lewis to come along with them. And we know why they wanted her. They wanted her to check her brain to find out where this codex was. But what's very interesting is that as she walks past Lewis, the people of Earth, and especially the military people of Earth in this case, the military people of Earth respond to this, and it responds in the response of Colonel Hardy. Colonel Hardy is pretty much the voice of what the military thinks about Superman. And so Colonel Hardy, he says, you asked for the alien. You didn't say anything about one of our own. And it's interesting how a perception of someone can change so radically just by someone exposing their culture or their heritage or their background or their gender or their sexual orientation. All of a sudden, people view them differently. Or their past. Maybe they were murderers or criminals or whatever. or their class, right? And it's very interesting how people's perception of you can change so rapidly just because someone exposes a piece of information about you. Bearing that in mind, it's interesting to listen to how Bruce Wayne responds to that in BVS. How, after seeing firsthand the destruction that happened at Metropolis when Superman was fighting General Zod, just like how Colonel Hardy, he was able to see face to face Faora Ul, and he was alarmed at the kind of technology and the power that these beings had. Very similarly, Bruce Wayne, now thinking of Superman, the destruction and damage, he goes on to tell Clark Kent when he talks about, how Batman's this vigilante who's working above the law. He's saying, your paper's a bit hypocritical. Okay, you write puff piece editorials about this guy, your hero, who saves cats out of the tree, about an alien who, if he wanted to, could burn the whole place down. There wouldn't be a damn thing we could do to stop it, which is true. If Superman decided to go on a destructive spree like General Zod, human beings could not stop him. They can blow him up. We saw him get nuked in Batman v Superman. He came back. Okay, Superman's pretty indestructible. So Batman had a pretty sensible argument here. Of course, he didn't know about kryptonite at that time. They were chasing down the kryptonite, but they didn't know how far kryptonite could destroy Superman. And it now makes logical sense that kryptonite can destroy Superman because it comes from Krypton. And Superman is sort of weakened in Krypton. And now it makes sense why. But anyway, we're going on. So the point is that you see the reaction, the visceral reaction to someone being alien to them. And there's this feeling of this person has been posing all along. This person has been a fraud. They have been a liar all along. And I think that's the idea that you're seeing here, shared by these people. I think about what's happening in the United States of America. Let me take a break to see what you guys are saying in the chat section. I think about the United States of America. Holy crap. I thought I did screen share. That is so the hell. Okay, hold on, guys. I thought I had screen share all the time. I didn't realize you guys are not seeing anything. That is so crazy. That is so freaking crazy. So I'm going to just kind of try and, wow, what the hell happened to screen share? Man, dude, sometimes trying to operate these things, sometimes you wonder what the technology is doing. Apparently I didn't press screen share. So I'm going back so you guys can see what happened here. So I'll just recap. So I was telling you guys about how, how Kal-El was revealed to the world. And then I was giving you the military's view of it. Now you guys can see the screen. I'm sorry about that. I didn't realize that screen share wasn't on. I hope it's on now. So here we have very similar reactions where you see Colonel Hardy, and you can see his reaction is, you asked for the alien. You didn't say anything about one of our own. And this is Man of Steel talking to Faora Ul, who's a Kryptonian, just like Kal-El is a Kryptonian. And notice that they separate, Colonel Hardy separating that Kal-El is just not one of them. He might look like them, like General Zod said, but he's not one of them. He's an alien. He looks like a human, okay? But of course, Colonel Hardy had seen Superman floating in the sky. When they had to pull him in, it was like, make sure you don't play games with me, General. All right. I want Lois Lane's safety, right? And he's hovering above the military, okay? And we learned that he's pretty indestructible, okay? So I can understand Colonel Hardy's fear of this poser. And I think that a lot of times people think of these guys as posers. And again, you can leave your comments in the chat section as I'm doing this video so I can see you guys. I'm going to come to the chat section. I'm going to just break in the middle of this thing and come to the chat section. So don't worry about it. But anyway, the interesting thing is both Bruce Wayne and Colonel Hardy, they have the same kind of sentiment, except the difference is Colonel Hardy had worked along with Superman and Bruce Wayne hadn't at the point in time. Bruce Wayne had witnessed what happened in Metropolis, but he did not know he knew the side of the damage and destruction that happened to him and his company. But apparently he's not aware. Colonel Hardy saw a different kind of story. And unfortunately, Colonel Hardy's not around to witness about that. He's somewhere either in the Phantom Zone or dead. So unfortunate, very unfortunate. But nonetheless, Colonel Hardy, this was his initial impression of Superman because as far as he's concerned, this is just a Kryptonian, okay? This is an alien, just like how Bruce Wayne thinks about it. But Bruce Wayne has a different point of view because he's seen destruction that happens with this alien involved. And so he's really on he has animosity towards Superman. And it's not to say that Colonel Hardy doesn't have animosity towards the Kryptonian as well, because he feels this is a poser for 33 years. He's been on Earth and he's a poser. And now we're happy to just give him back to his people because we don't want to get annihilated, right? So he doesn't really have a thing. He doesn't care about Superman, right? Whereas Bruce Wayne, he hates Superman, okay? There's a little bit of difference. So the reaction by Bruce is a lot stronger. And Bruce is filled with fear. Now, when we look at the later stages, I kind of have 4 photos here, one after the other, just like here. So you can see the attitude, the mindset. Colonel Hardy, after seeing the Kryptonians in action, he says, I have previously encountered and observed the beings. So they both looked at him as aliens. Now he's calling them beings. We're about to engage in close proximity. They're extremely dangerous and have been authorized to use deadly force. And guess what? How does Bruce Wayne react to that as well? Well, Bruce Wayne's a little bit more forceful. He says that son of a bitch brought the war to us. He has the power to wipe out the entire human race. If there's a 1% chance he's our enemy, we have to take it as an absolute certainty, and we have to destroy him. So both Colonel Hardy and Bruce Wayne, they think of Superman as a threat. In this case, Colonel Hardy lumps Superman in with all of the Kryptonians, thinks of him as an alien, doesn't think of him as a human being, as a man. And for him, it's use excessive force, use deadly force on these beings, destroy them. All right. And guess what? How does Bruce Wayne feel? The same way. Okay. And it's very interesting. Why I say this is interesting, because it's a human condition that when someone is different to you and maybe more powerful than you are, to look at them in fear, to look at them and not reason, just look at them as fear. You know, I think of how banks sometimes get a bad rep. But if you think about it, you're a lending agency. What you do is lend. How are you going to collect? It's one of the toughest things in the world. And just recently in my country, the banks, some people started using the ATMs and stealing money out of the banks. They figured out a way, a loophole into it, and they were robbing banks doing that. And some other people will be like, yes, yay, but no, not yay. Think about it. The banks make their money off of lending money. And think about this now. A lot of people don't think about this. A lot of times people owe them money. They don't get back their money immediately. If you borrow a loan, you pay back in small amounts over time. Yeah, it accumulates to more money when you're all said and done, but you're constantly paying them back small amounts of money. They never get the lump sum. They never get back their money in totality like that. They always get it in bits and pieces. And just imagine businesses and you know, it's a kind of credit system. So it's businesses and stuff owe them money, and that's all well and good. But it just suppose the business decides to close down and skip town or file for bankruptcy. What happens then? They lose money. So I'm just saying that, you know, it's a risky business. And then whenever you lend people anything, you don't know if you're going to get your stuff back, no matter how strict your rules are. Right. And so when you think about it, banks have a risky business, and it's really sad that we perceive banks as they're much better off than we are. So therefore, that means when somebody robs them, you're like, yay. Well, that's the same way how Bruce Wayne and Colonel Hardy felt about Superman. They felt this guy's really powerful. He has lots of power, ability. You know, this guy, I don't really give a damn about him. And then wherever it comes to him, it comes to him, you know. And then Bruce had a bad experience with him firsthand. So, you know, he just totally hates him. And so I should say this to put things in perspective. Again, everything I'm talking about is perspective, right? The DCEU, you know, these movies, I'm talking about perspective and change in perspective. And sometimes if you put yourself in another person's shoes, that helps. And also, if you can think of people as individuals, everyone in this world, I don't care if they're retarded, you know, or as we say, intellectually challenged. I don't care if they're they do things that you think are contrary to what you believe. For instance, if they may be a witch, or if, you know, and these labels are dangerous because sometimes we cross the boundary with these labels. And that's why I'm trying to explain to people, you have to watch it what people do, what they do with their lives, not so much what label they profess to be. And I try to tear down these labels on people so that we can look at them as individuals, because they have the same desires we have. They have the same feelings we have. And no matter what you think, they wired very much like how we're wired. So no matter if you think they're a bad person, and the problem with this is we don't give people a chance to be people and then form connections with them. The worst person in the world needs to have connections with somebody else. They need it to live. You cannot live in a vacuum. A lot of people can be hermits. They still have to live with plants or animals. People in prison sometimes befriend cockroaches. I remember Floyd Mayweather saying he befriended cockroaches and he was friends with them and he would play with them as pets. My point being, people need, this is not if or but. I mean, they've done this study a long time ago with little babies. And if you feed them all the nutrients and everything and you don't give them love and care, the babies die. Okay, we're social animals, no matter what you say, whether it is that we have to build a relationship with a plant or an animal or whatever, we have to make a connection with something. And this is very important to understand. I'm saying this because, again, when we look at some of our behaviors, it's one of the most funniest things in the world, because we try to push other people away from us and not build connections with people. And I'm not saying that every connection is good and prosperous. We're not talking about that. We're talking about people. People are worth it. Even the worst people in the world, there must be some kind of connection with them of some sort, because there's some level of good in them. And we are connected in the world, you know, without talking too much metaphysics, but we are connected in the world through electromagnetic fields. We are. It's just what it is. And so at the end of the day, no matter how much you want to disconnect from someone, you're still connected to them. That's why there's a philosophy out there where they talk about, I am God. There's the I am God philosophy, which is not talking, when they say I, they're not talking about an individual. They're talking about collectively, a collective consciousness, which is a totally, again, you have to see the perspective from which these people are talking from. If you don't understand the perspective from which they're going, you'll say heresy, but it's not necessarily heresy if you're thinking of it as a collective understanding. And as a collective understanding, even though I think it's beyond that, but nonetheless, as a collective understanding, I can understand why they say collectively as a consciousness, I am God, I am He. I get it, right? I don't totally agree with it, but I understand where they're coming from. And so it's important to have understanding about what people are saying. If you don't understand what they're saying, then it's a problem. So anyway, you can see that both Bruce and Colonel Hardy believe the solution to the problem is to destroy these beings. And you don't discriminate between them because they're all the same. You know, it's like where you hear Donald Trump talk about, you know, the Mexicans, they got criminals in the country, and they got a lot of criminals, and he very ubiquitously classes. He may not intend it, but he lumps all the Mexicans into one group as if they're criminals. Okay, I understand that he's talking about the drug cartels and that Mexicans come into the country, but they're not the only criminals. There's lots of criminals, okay, that come into the country, and criminals who are resident in the country, right? And when you use these generic kinds of language as a leader, as someone who is supposed to be leading your country and leading the world, this is constructive criticism. It leads to people also becoming very flippant with what they say. You know, Roseanne Barr, you know, people are talking about, oh, we all need to take the blame. Roseanne Barr said something, but the tone was set by the leader of the country. And he hasn't been held to task, and he has not been accountable for that. No one is leading him to being accountable. There have been outcries and protests, but the people in power and authority who, you know, the networks, ABC and they, who censored Roseanne should have the authority also as media outlets to censor the president. And you put something up on Twitter, not only do you bash it, but don't make it news and hold him accountable for that. They should have hearings or whatever, and they should hold him accountable for that. Not because you're the leader of the free world means you have no accountability. And I think that's what's happening. You have people backing this guy, whoever they are. I'm not going to use generic statements because I'm not going to say the Republican Party, because there are Republicans who denounce what he's doing and want him accountable for what he's doing. But the majority of congressmen in the House are defending this. We have people in the Senate, not all Republicans in the Senate again, thankfully, who are defending this. It's about time people put their foot down. Now, I understand that this guy has been elected. But you must hold the guy accountable, and you cannot be afraid of his electorate. You have to stand fast, speak the truth at all times. And a lot of these guys are bought out. They're sold to the highest bidder. You have to step up to the table. It's happening now universally. I like that there was this left-wing person, I guess they say, who also spoke out about you know, the president. And since he started the line of disrespect, she started disrespecting him. She called him some name. I can't remember what it was. But at the end of the day, They want to hold her accountable for what she says, even though she actually has substance behind it. Roseanne Barr was just name calling, right? But she had also substance behind what she was saying, how she disagreed with the woman and she didn't like what she was doing at the time. But this precedent was set by Donald Trump, how he ran his campaign. How can you have the leader of the free world speaking like that, and then you want to censor other people, but you're not censoring him? And that's why it emboldens and enables people in society now to say whatever they want to say. You notice I try to stay away from that. I don't call him names. I don't berate this guy. In fact, I don't give him. I use examples of what he's doing mainly to show you guys the way not to do things. I'm not going to waste my time talking about him all day. I've had my piece already with this dude. My point being, though, we know he's racist. We know it's an air of racism. We know the attorney general is racist. We know this already. My point being, this is not the way for us to proceed. And we as a collective must understand that. And remember, what I like about both Man of Steel and Batman v Superman and then Justice League is they address this issue in steps. The first one in Man of Steel showed that from afar they judged this guy and they realized they were wrong about him. And then from afar again, and a guy who affected negatively by something this guy was involved in, which was supposed to be something good, this guy sees the negative of this guy and the potential evil of this guy. And he also is a xenophobe, just like Colonel Hardy started at the beginning, and rightfully so. Again, let me just say something. And I'm going to address the fears of the white public, certain white demographics in the United States of America. Their fears that they're losing control of things, that there'll be a minority that people will do to them what they did to others, or certain people of them. They may not be the people that personally did that to others, but they're afraid the tables will turn on them. They're afraid also that the white privilege that they had will go away. They're afraid that they're struggling now, that things will only get worse for them and nobody will remember them. These are credible fears. Let me be real with you guys. That's a real fear, and it's real, and it's understandable. You know, it's understandable. You know, I looked at a certain town in the United States of America that nobody's been paying attention to, and these people are poor as dirt, and they're struggling since the collapse of the coal mine industry. And you got to understand they are forgotten. And they're white people. I've seen people in trailer parks, white people struggling. And they're also, they thought Barack Obama would stand up for them. And they don't know. It's still tough for them. It's gotten a little easier in some respects, but still tough. You got to understand the black demographic in the United States of America thought Barack Obama would do a lot for them. And it still was rough for them. Yes, some people profited. Not everybody. I was in the United States of America when Barack Obama became president. It obviously didn't immediately trickle down to me as a black person in the United States. In fact, as much as black people rejoiced, they were treated the same way for a good period of time. But inspirationally, it gave them hope that they could attain certain things in America. But it didn't make America easier for them overnight. No, it made it worse for them at certain points. Because now people started targeting them from day one when he won. And it's very interesting that I remember when Jack Johnson, reading the history of it, when he won the heavyweight championship of the world, black people started rejoicing. They got lynched, hung, they got attacked. And I remember certain scholars saying Jack Johnson needs to stand up for these people. And Jack Johnson was like, hell no, I ain't standing up with nobody. They wasn't with me they wasn't rocking with me. And that's why I had a hard time with some black folk, especially black ladies. They were giving me a hard time. So that's why I rock with white women. And Jack Johnson was kept on talking about these different things, how he wasn't accepted in his community at certain points in time. It's very interesting. It's very interesting having these discussions. And I think it's something America needs to talk about. Race is a very important topic. Yes, some people flippantly throw the race card. And I'm talking about not necessarily black people, even though black people do it too. But I've seen other races try to pull the race card too. And sometimes what they say is true. And other times it's just, oh, they can get to do it. Okay, we're going to do it too. Right? A strategy. And that's stupid. But my point anyway is this, that, you know, a lot of times, you know, we do not empathize with the people who really are suffering. They really are suffering. And the fears by people who may be white or people who have had privilege on their side, it's understandable. Look, you have to understand, you don't know what the future will bring. You don't know if people turn around and bash you once. You know, let's look at the gender thing, the Me Too movement, right? A lot of men are afraid that when women push this Me Too movement, and then some guy will get pushed out of office for something he did 20, 30 years ago that he already resolved with somebody else, but this woman has an issue with him, so she gets him back. You know what I'm saying? This is the get back time. You know, and nobody's having any trial, nothing. It's just in the court of opinion. He did a horrendous act, and then therefore he's got to go. That's a nice way to reshuffle how organizations look, right? And kick men out of organizations as well, right? And so, yeah, of course, men are going to have that fear because they've had privilege for a very long time. They've had, you know, the majority of jobs, or they were always at the top of the pyramid. Now things are shuffling up and things are starting to change around. They're worried about that. To be honest with you, it's a fear. It's a real one. But what are you going to do about it? Are you going to try and oppress women? Are you going to try and get back the status quo as it was? Hell no. Now, you want it to be just and fair and not tip over the other way, because, you know, there's some women who hate guys and they will male bash to the end. And we've seen it. All right. So I understand all of that. But at the same time, let's be real. If the tables turn a certain direction, right? If the tables are turning a certain direction and women who have been oppressed for so long are getting freedoms, you should be happy about that, because it's only going to make America better. It's only going to make the world a better place. And how we decide to engage with one another. Now, if we engage with one another as total hate, we're just hating on each other, we'll destroy each other. But if we work together, it's only going to get better. And of course, it's going to be juggling and jostling. It's going to be a little bit rough, but it got to get it right. We got to get it right. You know, because I'm telling you, man, when we work together, all of us work together, it's going to be better. It's not going to be worse. So I'm continuing on. So that's what it showed me there. Let me just go back to the chat section, see if anybody is saying anything. I just like to make these social commentary while I'm doing these videos. Okay. All right. Nobody's saying nothing. People got mute. People afraid to talk or something. That's all good. It's all good. We're going to keep it running, though. We're going to keep it running. You guys ready to throw in your comments? Let me know. Anyway, so like I was saying, you saw that both Bruce Wayne and Colonel Hardy, they had the same kind of attitude. So what happens? The attitude is challenged. So Colonel Hardy says, therefore, I need you to engage all the targets. And then a soldier says, you know, he says, Roger, what he calls himself? Roger 201 or something like that. It's really cool. And he says, what about the guy in blue? And then you hear Colonel Hardy say, I said engage all targets, right? So he maintains, shoot this guy down, take him out. And it's very interesting. You get that same reaction, but a lot more visceral from Alfred. So after Bruce Wayne says, we have to destroy him, he says, but he is not our enemy. Okay. But Bruce Wayne, he ain't gonna get swayed. He's just like Colonel Hardy. He's like, not today. 20 years in Gotham. We're seeing what promises are worth. How many good guys are left? How many stayed that way? And of course, for those of you who have seen The Dark Knight, he's actually referencing Harvey Dent, okay? Two-Face. He's also, of course, he's also referencing a couple other people. You know, you can think of the Red Hood, if it's, I don't know if Jason Todd actually exists in this universe. I think they're alluding to Dick Grayson existing in this universe. So I don't know if Dick Grayson becomes the Red Hood. Who knows? I don't know. And then he's referring to a number of people who had good intentions and they turn out to be bad people. And it reminded me of Spider-Man as well, where, you know, he had some of the scientists like the Lizard who intended good things, but it ended up being something bad. So I just think about outside of this universe, also other stories that have been told, which I thought were good. Now, after all of that, Superman comes and saves Colonel Hardy's life. And, you know, the military surrounds him and Superman comes out. And Colonel Hardy comes to the conclusion, this man is not our enemy. Okay. Well, it wasn't that easy with Bruce Wayne. Okay, when he had a showdown with Superman, you know, egged on by Lex Luthor, and you know he was like throwing insult after insult. He was like, "You're not brave. Men are brave." And he was talking about when Superman inhaled the kryptonite dust. And then, you know, when he was about to give him the final blow to kill his ass, he said, "You were never a god. You were never even a man." Now, Lex Luthor thinks that Superman is a god. Bruce Wayne doesn't even think he exists. Okay, he doesn't think of Superman as anything. He just thinks of it as a piece of crap, like the shit of the earth. Okay, because Bruce really hates him for what he did to Wayne Enterprises. Okay, he blamed Superman for that. Okay, and that's what got Bruce Wayne. It ticked him over the edge, and he started gunning for Superman after that. So he was like, "You were never a god. You were never even a man." You know, what's the guy's name? Wally, right? Wally, who was the guy who went to the trial, he said he's not a hero. You know, Wally also shared the kind of sentiment, the vitriol for Superman that Bruce Wayne had. And again, you have to look for it from different perspectives. These guys were hurt by these guys, so they have an animosity towards them. And again, if you think about certain demographics in the United States of America, some people will say, "Fuck the police." Okay, you're gonna have a negative attitude to the police and feel that they never will help you because you had a negative experiences with them, and not necessarily the bulk of the police, maybe certain cops, right? And I'm not saying that systematically police don't what's the word I'm looking for, you know, they don't stereotype people. I forgot what it's called. Profile people. They don't profile people. I've been followed around in the United States of America by the police, but the police have also helped me. Okay, my experience in the United States of America, I remember I was dead tired and I pulled on the side of the freeway, and a state trooper came by. He saw me and he came out. He saw me. My chair was down, and he was like, "No, you can't pull off on the side here, but I'm going to escort you to the nearest stop so you can get some sleep." And he made sure I stayed awake, and he drove me. And you know, the freeway has these kind of things that go brr, 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 so they kind of keep you awake, right? And you know, in the United States of America, one of the greatest killers of people is just falling asleep at the wheel. So he understood my situation, and he escorted me all the way to the nearest stop. He told me where it was, but he wanted to make sure I was okay, and he escorted me to the nearest stop with my little Honda Accord. Okay, red Honda Accord. I'm just saying to you guys that no, the police they're not bad people, you know, and the police is not bad by and large, but sadly certain people have very bad experiences with the police because of where they live, because of their demographic, because of who they are. Okay, and they do profile. In my very country, where everybody's black more or less, they profile people in certain neighborhoods. Innocent people die at the hands of the police. Not so very often now, but they still do, because of certain neighborhoods which have a certain stigma attached to them. So police profile people. It's like you less than nothing in the earth. And that's the same thing that happened with Batman when he saw Superman. For him, he wasn't seeing Superman intimately. He did not know Superman like that. He saw him from afar. He saw this alien from afar. Same thing with Colonel Hardy, until Superman got involved in his life and saved his freaking life. The guy who called in to Colonel Hardy and said, "What about the guy in blue?" That guy had seen the guy in blue protect these people. He was going up against the other two people. That guy in blue, maybe that was the guy that bailed out of the plane. That guy was talking about, what about the guy in blue? Maybe the guy that Superman saved, his life was saved when he tackled Pharaoh L, who was coming at the plane. You know, you never know. So I'm just saying, the soldiers on the ground were able to see that this guy in blue, he was actually seeming to fight the other two Kryptonians. But Colonel Hardy didn't want to hear that, right? And he was like, until Superman saved his life. Until Superman saved his life. Then he did not just call Superman an alien anymore, or a being, or a target. Now Superman had become a man. And he said, this man is not our enemy. But what's happening with Bruce Wayne? Bruce Wayne can't see Superman as a man. He doesn't see him as a man. That's why he says, you're not brave. Men are brave. He's saying, I don't have superpowers like you, but I'm brave. Okay. You have superpowers to lie back on. You're an alien. Okay. You're not human. Okay. You got no heart. Okay. You're a coward. Guess what? That's what certain races say about other races. They call black people monkeys. They call them cowards. How many times you've seen that in boxing? You know, they're great athletes, but they're endowed with all of these gifts and skills. They don't have to work hard. They're not brave. They're not courageous. They don't got no heart. How many times have you heard that? How many times have you heard that? Let's be real. That's what I like about these movies. These are movies I can talk about issues with to you guys as a Christian brother and spell it out. This is what this movie's saying. Okay, well, let's keep it moving because this is some more important things. So he says, you're never a God. You were never even a man. And then he gets a reality check. Okay, he gets a reality check when he realizes he's about to kill this so-called alien. And if he does so, he will let Martha, the alien's mother, also his mother's name, die. You know what? You know what Superman said to Batman that made him stop? And he was like thrown for a loop. He said, you're letting him kill Martha. That stabbed Bruce. Bruce didn't know what to do with that. Because implicit in that is saying you. Superman says you are letting him kill Martha. That cuts him. It's not the Martha. It's not the name Martha that got him. Yeah, of course, if he had said, you're letting him kill Sally, of course, he probably might. It wouldn't have stick him as hard, okay? He would still ask Superman, what the hell are you talking about? But it wouldn't have hit him home. It's the Martha name, yes. But what really got to him is when Superman went to his conscience, to his guilt. He hit him where the guilt is. He said, you're letting him kill Martha. Find him. Save Martha. That shit messed with Bruce. And if I was Bruce, I'd have been messed up too. I don't care how much of a criminal I am because I'm so attached to my mother's death and the man that killed her. Okay? I so want to save my mother. I so like to bring her back. Now you send it, you fly this straight in my face that I'm the one allowing this murder to go down? Is that what you're really telling me? Is that what you're telling me, Kal-El? Because he knows him as Kal-El, right? As Superman? That's what you're telling me, Superman? This alien? What the hell is this? So he is thrown for a loop, man. He is thrown for a loop. And after that, he realizes that Martha, through Lois Lane, Martha is Superman's mom, and Superman's trying to save his mother's life like he wish he could do. He wish he could save his mother's life. And Superman is handing him this on a platter. He's saying, save her. Don't let her get killed. Save her. Find this guy and save her. He doesn't call the guy's name. He doesn't say Lex Luthor. He tried to explain to him that Lex is trying to, he didn't listen. So he didn't even call the name of the guy. So that leaves us open. And I like that Zack Snyder in his imagery never called the name of the guy. He didn't say Joe Chill. He didn't say anything. He just left the guy as this guy. So that in Batman's mind, it's an open-ended thing. He didn't have to call a name. It's a guy out there that killed my mother. So he said, you're letting him kill Martha. That's that mess with you. You getting nightmares about this shit. It's on replay all the time. And if somebody comes and addresses that direct thing, even though they don't know that they're doing so, that shit will mess with you. Okay, it will mess with you. And that's what happened with Batman. He got messed up with that, right? Hold on, guys. I'm going to go back and just see what you guys are doing. Dave Ethan there clapping away. Let me just make sure. Let me see oh, shit. Oh, shit. I didn't realize I'm not in screen share again. Shout out to you, Dave Ethan. I see you clapping away. Sorry about that, guys. I'm going to have to try and go it over again. Every now and then, I keep on missing the screen share. So I'm trying to screen share it so you guys can see. And, oh, God. So anyway, yeah, Colonel Hartley, because Superman had an impact on his life, he said, this man is not our enemy. When it comes to Batman now, he was saying, you ain't shit. You're not even a human being. You less than a human being. You nobody, right? You're not brave. Men are brave, right? You're never a god. You were never even a man. So you can see that right there. And Batman is like messed up after Superman says, you're letting him kill Martha. It's like Superman's blaming him. He's like, it's on you, mother. No cursing. No cursing. He's on you. If you let Martha die, you were letting him kill Martha. That messed with him, man. That totally messed with his mind. Totally messed with his mind. And he's like this alien, like he's trying. Like, you can imagine him short circuiting. He's like, alien, what's going on here? So he's stuck, and he's like, why did you say that name? He's just saying it over and over and over and over. But it's not the name as much as it is he's putting that blame on him, and Batman can't come to terms with this blame. You're blaming me for her dying now? What are you talking about? Save Martha. You're letting him kill. What are you talking about? And figuratively, if he killed Superman, Joe Chill would have succeeded in killing Martha, because Martha was still alive in Bruce, and he would have lost the last shred of humanity he had. He was hanging on to humanity all along. He was a straggler on humanity. He still can fit in with other human beings. You know, you're struggling, and then bam, now he's about to kill the last thing inside of him. He would have let Joe Chill kill the last bit of Martha, the last thing he was holding on to. It would have been over. But so figuratively, he would have killed Martha, as well as now physically. He's like, what the hell is he talking about? He's like, he can't come to terms with it. He's confused until Lois Lane comes up and says his mother's name is Martha, and that flips him out even more, because now he realizes that this guy is in the same situation I once was in. His mother's about to be taken. It just so happens his mother's name is Martha. This shit's going to go down again. And my whole purpose in life, the whole reason I formed the Batman, was for this shit not to go down again. You get what I'm saying? And so it's very, very deep what Zack Snyder did. And that's what made me cry in this. I literally cried. I shed a tear. I came to tears when I saw that scene and him recapping the scene of his mother dying and stuff. People didn't get it. It's very significant. It's to the core of who Batman is. Batman did not want his mother to die. He didn't want anybody else to experience the horror, the fear, the sadness, depression, the desolation that he felt when his world came crashing down. He did not want that to happen to anybody. And he used all his resources, all his skills, all his ability to be a dirt finder. This guy he's like a cop. He sees the negative in people. And he's like the avenging angel. He said, I'm going to be the asshole to stop these assholes. I'm going to be that dude. Okay? I'm going to use everything I have at my disposal to make sure this never happens again. And throughout his career, it happened. And it happened again and again and again. And Robin dies. And there's atrocious murders, and he gets these criminals into prison, and they come back out, and they keep on killing people, and all kinds of shit happens. But he keeps on persisting until the Kryptonian. He has no answer for the Kryptonian. He feels powerless. This Kryptonian that they revealed was a Kryptonian on Earth. They allowed this freaking Kryptonian to stay on Earth and be a hero after devastating his family. Killing all those people inside of Wayne Towers in Metropolis. And no one's going to do anything about this? Oh, hell no. Hell no. You understand? That's where he was coming from. And I'm going to say it again. In the United States of America, where all of these minorities keep on getting all of these help and boost, and then now white America starts to struggle because they need to deal with their loans too. But here we have these minorities, and they're getting grants, and they're getting things because of what we call it, affirmative action. Of course you're going to think it's unfair. Of course, let's be real. Let's dig up the heart of the issue. Of course it's going to be unfair to you. Here you are killing yourself trying to pay off a loan, and this guy gets a grant. Right? Because they want to make up numbers. Why doesn't he do the same thing I do? Go through, get a loan, and struggle too like I do. I understand it. It don't make it right. How is someone supposed to get out of a ghetto? Some people will say, well, there's some bright kids who were, you know, they were in trailer parks, and some white kids are in ghettos now. It's tough for them. It's really tough with the heroin trade going on around them. And now it's tough for them to get out of their situation. How about those kids? Absolutely correct. What about those kids? What about those kids who did their GED and everything, and then they get a job and they work hard, and then they're kicked out of their job because the people who manage the business don't have enough money to keep these guys going because of the healthcare bills. Now they have to get healthcare insurance to make sure everybody got healthcare insurance. I understand it. But this is the thing. There are challenges to life. So Bruce Wayne hates Superman for being Superman. He hates that Superman can get this break and that break, and people praise him because he envies him. He's jealous because he's been hurt by Superman, or at least he thinks so. Superman never intended to hurt him. Similarly, the kids who get the grants, of which, remember, even though you get a grant, you can lose a grant real easy. You have to keep your GPA up. These are kids who really did well in school. And I'm not saying that some of the other non-minorities haven't done well in school, but if they do really well in school, they'll also get scholarships. Isn't that right? So the truth be told, some of these students, they do also very well in school, but they can't afford to go to university for various reasons. And mind you, a lot of minorities, they may do very well in school and still for some reason other than the scholarship and a grant, they can't go to university, whether it's a parent in trouble or whatever it is. And a lot of them don't get support to want to go to school. But yes, minorities are getting better and better treatment in universities, even though they still try to weed them out and there's systematic racism there. We got to be real. You still have a lot of kids as well going to universities, a lot of them. And not only do they have to deal with loans, but sometimes they fail classes and they got to do shit over again. It's a struggle. And some of them are the first in their families, white families, to make it to university. So either way, how you look at it, there is this reality. Let's be real here. Now, what I'm saying is you don't envy somebody who gets a grant because they run in their own race. But there are innovative ways to get sponsorship and grants. If you're innovative, I will challenge people. I never envy another man because I know one way or the other, he gonna pay for what he have to do. If he didn't pay the dues up front, he gonna have to pay them up later. I know how it goes in this game. There's nothing for free. So at the end of the day, if you're innovative enough to get a sponsor, I'll tell these young kids something. All of you, whether you white, black, whatever, I'm going to tell you something. Education is great, but everybody needs money, right? So I will always suggest to you guys this. Try to form your own business. The sooner you can get involved in business and understand the schematics of business, the better for you. I always tell people this, and I follow this very same rule myself. Don't wait for somebody to employ you. Employ yourself. A lot of people doing this YouTube stuff, it helps them to get through college and university. Now more than ever, there are a million different ways to get money. You have to research all of them, find the way that's best for you, and go for it. Don't feel sorry for yourself, and don't feel sorry for your circumstances. I remember I used to go into universities, and they had controls on their Google and stuff in the libraries and stuff. I would research all kinds of stuff that had to do with business and how I could get ahead. And yeah, I got burned a couple of times investing some of the small little cash I made. You know what I used to do? Recycle bottles, folks. Now I listen to some white people and they say, oh man, I got to go recycle bottles. I'm like, yep, that was standard protocol for me. You know, they probably never knew about that. They never knew about having hard times. And it's okay. But the thing about it is when you've had hard times, you can show these people the ropes of how to move your way around. If you ain't got enough credit, how you can find a credit card. If you ain't got no car, right? I can show you how to get a cheap car, right? If you ain't got no license to drive, well, that's a different story. But I don't want to just get you a car. But there is other ways to get a vehicle, whatever, and drive around in certain places, you know, even though you ain't got no license. You know what I'm saying? It's good for white America to know Hispanics. Good to know black people. You know, some of my best friends in the United States of America were Hispanic. That's right. I had black friends, but they weren't, some of them were black American, But for the most part, Black American people were doing pretty good where I was. So my good best friends were Hispanics. They were Mexican people. And they're the nicest people in the world. They family and everything. They nice people. You know, you would think that there's this race war between Mexicans and Black Americans. Not really. Not really. I find Mexicans to be one of the most down-to-earth people. A Mexican guy, he allowed me to stay and sleep in a university. It was illegal to sleep in a university if you didn't know. I didn't know it at the time. And he gave me a blind, and he let me sleep in certain places. He told me, you got to go and find a place for yourself. But in the meantime, I see you trying to push. You know what I'm saying? And I'm just saying this to people so they will understand that out here, some people really got heart. And sometimes it's the poorest people that got real big hearts, man. And this guy wasn't poor. He was a janitor, but he was over a lot of people in there, making sure the university was maintained. He coordinated with the security, but he'd give me a little bly there. You know what I'm saying? And I'm saying all of this to tell you guys something. That if you guys pull together, I keep on saying it over and over again, and you guys talk your pains, talk to one another. Yeah, you guys might fight a bit, but talk to one another. Because truly, if you tell somebody else your problems, and then you won't envy them, and you will root for when somebody succeeds. I was in a PhD program, and there was this other guy, and he's an MD PhD now. He's a medical doctor, I think he's doing cardio surgery and that kind of stuff. And I remember rooting for this guy, man. I said, if one of us make it through, great. You know what I'm saying? I rooted for this guy. I never once hated on this guy. I wasn't jealous of his accomplishments and stuff, because that's how we got to move, folks. Whether you white, whether you black, whether you Mexican, whether you Hispanic, whether you're Chinese, Asian, whatever, we got to root for each other. When one of us succeeds, in a way, all of us have succeeded. That's how you got to look at it. And hope the best for each other. When you're going through rough times, don't worry about that. Even if the person is be mocking you after they succeeded, at least they succeeded. We got to focus on positive things, folks, so that we can help each other move forward. It's about having a clean heart, a clean conscience towards everyone. Wanting to see everybody succeed. Don't compare your success to other people's successes. That's what happens. Run your own race. Run your own lane. I tell people all the time, you just never know when something bad could happen to somebody. The person might be going well all the time, and then all of a sudden something bad happened to them. I've seen it too many times in my short life. And now you're feeling all bad for them. But all the time when they were doing well, you're jealous of them. What is that? So I'm just saying, keeping it going. Let me just come out of this, just make sure, see what other people are saying here. Before I get back, I just stop this thing here. Davey, there will always be community colleges. Yeah, man, community colleges are dope, and right now they're kind of free depending on what you're studying. You know, and from a community college, you can go to university. That is true. So there's all of that and the courses and stuff. So that's a plus. And again, you got to understand there is also the problem in United States of America where some people, they got other things on their plate why they're not able to study. You remember, studying is kind of like a luxury. You know, sometimes it's more important you work to sustain your family for various reasons. So I understand why people might go to work, and then if they got a little time, they start a part-time study, right? But of course, as you go up to the higher degrees, the masters and the graduate, postgraduate studies, you will need scholarships and money for that. And so, you know, it's tough when you have to finance your way through that. So, I mean, we got to be real out here. You know, I know of a number of friends of mine who were not in minorities, and they had to finance their way through college. Okay. And it's tough. But the thing is, I would always say they have a one-up on the people who actually got scholarships, because when you finance your way through something, you are the one that's sort of sponsored yourself. And so because of that, your only responsibility is to yourself to make sure you get it done. Whereas if you're in a scholarship, you're kind of responsible to your mentor and also to your the guy who sponsored you, especially if you came into the country and you didn't come into the country with a visa or something. Now you are at the discretion of your sponsor. If your sponsor is not happy with you, you can be sent back to your country. It's not as easy as people think. You know, there's a lot of catch-22s to these things. Not to mention how many Black Americans, I'm talking about Black Americans now, not people from other countries who are Black Americans. Very few Black Americans actually get scholarships to do anything. They get their scholarships through sport, still to this day. So it's really, really tough on them, even though a lot of them have gone back to school under Barack Obama and started studying different things. And I know if this lady, my good friend, he probably doing his doctorate if he hasn't finished his doctorate by now. But his mother went back and did a master's. Then she died. I think she died of cancer. I can't remember what it was. Or asthma. I can't remember what it was. But she died after. But she wanted always to go back to school, and she was like 60-something years old, and she went back, man, and she studied. Props to her. She got a master's degree. I was like, yeah, you know what I'm saying? Anyway, Zill Nation says, you could just be yourself, and that what I learned in life. Of course, you have to be yourself, Zill Nation. There ain't nothing you can do about it, but be yourself. But my thing is attitude. What you bring to the table is always going to be unique because it's you. But your attitude to life is what I'm talking about. Where if you wish evil about people or you're jealous of people, you're being yourself, but it ain't the best self you could be. You know what I'm saying? To me, being the best self that you can be is doing your thing. Do you? You know what I'm saying? Doing your thing, not being jealous of other people and what they're doing. Who has time for that? You do what you do. You do yourself. You know what I'm saying? Zill Nation said technical colleges are good also. Yeah, technical colleges are needed because the skill sets, you know, if you can't get a job, it's good to be technical so that you can do something and you can still be employed and you can start your own business, your own company with technical stuff, technical know-how. So it's very important. Zill Nation says education is important in life. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Not the most important thing, but yes, it's important. At least knowing how to learn is important. Very, very true. But like I said before, business, everybody need money. So the foundation that you need to have is business skills. Anyway, nice to see you guys talking with me, man. It's pretty cool. Spent almost an hour and something already on this podcast. Let me get to the end of it, right? Get to the end of the stream. Shout out to Zill Nation. Shout out to Dave Eaton. We're going back into it, all right? So I just took this time to talk about these things while we're also talking about the reaction, the behavior, the change in attitude to Superman, right? Or Kal-El. So the shift in how Bruce Wayne looked at Kal-El happened when he realized that basically Kal-El was in a similar situation to where he was. And the second thing was that he would be responsible for how this situation turns out, depending on how he treats Kal-El. And for the first time, he's beginning to realize this dude is human. This dude's human. He's not an alien. He's human, right? He got a mom. He's worried about his mother dying, and his mother's a human, literal human being, his stepmother, but he's adopted as a mother. The other thing is, this guy's in the same situation I'm in. I could relate to this guy right now. And then what the hell am I doing? I'm about to kill this dude. And this dude's, what the hell am I doing? So all of that's going through his mind. And he's going, you know, his mind's racing at 100 miles an hour. You can see him here thinking about it after Lois Lane says it's his mother's name and she's frantic. And he's like, and he's trying to process everything because it just rocks his world, right? Whereas Colonel Hardy was helped by Superman, this dude actually knows this guy's name is he doesn't know he's Clark Kent yet. He doesn't know he's Clark Kent yet, but he knows who his mother is. Okay, this dude don't know that Superman's mother. He only knows him as an alien, you know, guy. He calls him a man because he saved his life, and it seems like he's standing for mankind, he's helping mankind. So he calls him a man. This guy, General Hardy, knows Superman as from a distance. It's kind of personalized, and Superman saves his life, right? Now, in a metaphorical way, Superman saves Batman's life. And so this is very intimate. It strikes Batman at the heart of who he is, okay? It strikes Bruce Wayne at the heart of who he is. So this change is even more radical in Batman than it was in Colonel Hardy. Okay, it's a bigger change. And then after that, Superman starts to tell him Lex Luthor's going to kill, was trying to give, he wanted me to give your life for my mother's, right? And right now she's in jeopardy of dying. And he's like, you know, and Bruce is like, don't worry, don't worry, don't worry. Don't worry, I'll take care of it. And he's like, no, my mother needs me. And he's like, no, look, man, I'll make you a promise. Dude starts to promise, right? Because Superman's telling him, man, you need to save Martha, man. Go find this dude, save. And he's like, okay, look, Bruce, because it looked like Clark was taking it back, right? And of course he doesn't know it's Clark until Lois Lane says Clark, right? So Bruce now he lifts up Clark and he's holding Clark, right? And he's pleading with Clark almost, and he's like, man, look, Clark, look, Superman, or whatever. He does. I don't think he calls him Clark or Superman. He's like, look, man, I make you a promise. Martha's not going to die tonight. And Superman's like, okay. And dude's like, Superman gives, dude tells Martha when he saves her, he says, I'm a friend of your son's. Dude suddenly became friends with Superman, okay? Superman doesn't even know Batman's like that kind of friend right now because it struck him at the heart of what he is. And so Batman's like so thankful to get this second chance at everything. Batman's calling him a friend and all that shit. It's crazy. But anyway, so that's the turning point for Batman. In fact, whereas Colonel Hardy says this man is not our enemy, Batman is remorseful. So Batman basically, or Bruce Wayne, he's got the extreme end of the stick. Bruce has extreme feelings of hatred for Superman. Then he has a reality check, which slaps him in the face. Then he has eternal gratitude for Superman. And then he has tremendous depression after that because he has this tremendous guilt upon him that is placed, that he feels responsible for Superman's death. Okay, because he was going up against Superman and just this total. In fact, at the end of Justice League, he says, I was just trying to correct a terrible error. Okay, a terrible error. He's trying to make a terrible wrong right. And you can see that he literally, from that point on, you can see that Bruce Wayne totally is a reflective dude. And he basically says, I failed him in life. I won't fail him in death. Like he's making this promise, almost like that promise he made to his parents that I failed them in life. I'll never fail them in death. This will never happen again. You could see him forming that resolve, and he feels he's got the weight of guilt upon him. Okay. So whereas Colonel Hardy, he came to the realization that Superman is human, and that was a refreshing realization. And he's almost in awe. He's very serious about it. And actually out of that comes the name Superman. I wouldn't be surprised Colonel Hardy or one of Colonel Hardy's men calls him Superman. Okay. And we hear about this when they're dealing with this very grave situation with the world engine terraforming the earth. And one of the soldiers who's in there, he's on the phone. He says, Colonel Hardy's on his way, and he's got Superman in tow. And General Swanwick, he's like, Superman? Who's that? And he says, the alien, sir. That's what they're calling him, Superman, right? And that's where Superman's name is birthed. It's birthed out of Colonel Hardy's understanding that this is not an alien. This is a man like us. He's not just a man. He's a Superman. And that's where Superman, they nickname him Superman, which is really cool. And here, however, with Bruce Wayne is heavy. So he has a heaviness on him. Now, Colonel Hardy, he's also looking at Superman, or he's looking at Kal-El. He doesn't know he's Clark, but he looks at Kal-El in a totally different light. You can see him kind of just nodding, and he's very reflective, and he's challenged as well as to how he thinks about Kryptonians, because this guy was just a couple of minutes ago an alien to him. And now he's not a stranger anymore. He's kind of like one of us. He takes him as our. So you can see here, man and R is highlighted to show that he's embraced Superman and he respects him. He's kind of in awe of him. He's kind of almost worshiping him. You know, he's in awe of him. And here earlier on, remember he was saying, you didn't say anything. You asked for the alien. You didn't ask for anyone of our own. So in this case, our own was humans, right? And all of a sudden, he's calling Superman human. This man is not our enemy. See, he's our friend. It's pretty cool. And that's a shout back to Superman 1978, by the way, a friend, right? And then here now, Bruce Wayne is talking about, man, you're not a god, you're not even a man, and he's pulling rank on Superman, right? Until all of a sudden he comes to the realization that, holy shit, he was more human than I am. He comes to that realization. He still feels that guilt upon him, and he doesn't feel like he can walk in Superman's shoes. He doesn't feel like he can walk in Kal-El's shoes, and he doesn't call him Kal-El anymore. In fact, he never called him Kal-El. He calls him Clark, and he says the world needs Superman. So the difference here between Bruce and Colonel Hardy and the army and the military led by General Swanwick is they dub Superman Superman, right? They give him the ultimate honor, call him a Superman. He's like, he's really a man. He's as human as they can be, superhuman, right? And we're talking about it in terms of ideals. And then here now, Bruce explains, he adds to that. He says the world needs, not once, the world needs Superman. And you can tell that he's personalized this. This is totally different. This is on another level. It's much more intimate. And he says the team needs Clark. And he calls him Clark because he knows who Superman is. And so, of course, he's been at the funeral of Clark Kent, so he knows he's Clark. But you can see this is a lot much more intimate than this is. That this guy actually knows Clark. He knows this guy. He's felt this guy's heart. He knows what this guy's gone through. He identifies with this guy because this guy has he had a similar need where his mother had to be saved. And so because of Martha, this whole incident draws Bruce closer to Clark. And now he sees Clark because he has a relationship with Clark. He sees Clark. He doesn't see Superman anymore. But he says the world needs this guy. He needs Superman. And so I find that very interesting because all along, Colin Harley, he takes Superman. Superman's there with him. Superman gets a ship and everything, and they go and they have a plan, right? Colonel Harley knows they need Superman as well, and they realize he's an asset to their side, but he doesn't vocalize it, right? And he's not intimate like that with Superman, right? But he's still grateful and he's in awe of Superman because of how Superman saved him. You can't believe that somebody with all that power, who's a Kryptonian, would, help humans. So, but it kind of makes sense. I mean, he's been living among them all the time. But anyway, we see that. So Superman was a figure of controversy to the military until he started defending them and protecting them. And even at the end of the movie, he's still a figure of controversy when General Swanwick is like, look, man, look, I can't convince Washington that you're not a danger to us. And even though he was talking to General Swanwick, Swanwick was still up in the air. And, Superman ends it off by saying, I guess I have to trust you. And anyway, he goes on. You can see that there's a depth with Bruce and Superman. And so the thing that makes this different to Bruce's situation different to what you saw in Man of Steel is Bruce has these strong emotions because he's been directly affected negatively by Superman. And then he comes around to understand that Superman's intention was never to affect him negatively. And so in a way, he only personally knows what Superman did to him. And he gets to know Superman on a one-to-one basis. And even though Superman disappears before he can really get to know Superman, he calls him Clark. He calls him by the human name. He acknowledges that Superman is more human than he is, that he can deal with people better, that he's been living amongst people while I've been hidden away in my tower, in my mansion, and I handle criminals. He's been mixing with people, inspiring people, taking care and trying to help people as much as possible. And that's why he says Superman would do a better job than he would, And so I find this very revealing, and I wanted to share with you guys. And what I'm saying is when you get to know people, when you get to know them outside of just the ideologies that they may represent, outside of what you think about them from afar, and you lump them into a group of people, don't do that. Every person is an individual. Every person is different. And when you get to have one-on-one relationships with people and you get to grow and know them, it's a much deeper than just the superficial things you think they are. That's why I don't like labels. The only label I like to know is your name, what you're called, what your parents called you. Because in a way, I feel like it limits when you think you know people. It limits getting to really know the scope and the magnitude of them. You know, I even have family members I don't really fully know. You know, and it's just to say, it's all in life. It's about giving people a fair shake and getting to know them better. You know, let me see what you guys are saying in the chat section here. Okay, that's about it for the chat section. Zill Nation, he was talking about education and stuff, and that's really cool. But if you guys want to leave any other comments based on what I just shared there, the point is that both Batman and the military, they came to a 180-degree understanding of who Superman was. In the case of Bruce, he knew him as Clark, and he realized that Clark was an awesome person who was a life changer. He transforms lives. He saved Bruce's life. He gave Bruce back. He was slipping down the slippery slope, and he gave Bruce back basically his life as Batman. Whereas Colonel Hardy literally got his life saved by Superman intervening and saving his life. And so these people saw Superman differently. They were seeing him from afar as an alien. And when they got close to him, they realized he was a person just like they were. And a person who was a really good person who could transform people's lives and make them better. And I'm just saying, give people a chance in this life. Don't stereotype them. Don't put them in these casts and say they're mean people. Give them a chance to get to know them, get to know people, because what you see from afar and what you label people as are not necessarily what they are. And sometimes they have things that can transform your life and make your life better. So give people a chance. That's what these stories are saying. And let's work together. Let's work together, folks. We can do this. You know, I don't know you guys but on the internet. I only know you guys from the internet. I really don't know you from anything else. And from talking about these movies. And I'm sure there's a lot more to you guys, each one of you, than what I see. And that's the awesome thing. As you get to know people, work together with them, and they reveal themselves to you, you get to know more sides of them. As people are much more complicated than meets the eye. So I'm just saying, let's strive in our communities to try and get to know people. Don't just judge them off the top of the head. And know sometimes you're tempted to do that and say they're rotten people. No one's rotten to the core. Everybody has something good about them. You can find out. So let's try to do that today. The scripture again. The scripture said, had it not been for the Lord on our side, when men rose up against us, then they would have swallowed us up quick. A lot of times people want to put negativity towards you like they did with Superman, but they couldn't swallow up Superman. They destroyed him. They killed him, but he rose back up from the grave, and he was able to show the beauty that the world can be and encourage people and give them hope and encourage the league to defeat, great threat. And the point behind it is, similarly, if we give people a chance, and if other people don't give us a chance and they try to destroy us and they go destructive way, if we're walking in the path of goodness, that goodness will spring back up. Maybe we will be dead, but it will still live on past us. So that's what I want to share with you guys. And again, always, if you like good things happening to you, why not do those good things to other people? On that note, you guys have a great one.